then we're going to be able to make our soils regen faster. I also want to mention that right now everybody's working on bugs in a jug, okay? And you guys can buy, you know, this jug of stuff, it's got 43 million live bugs in it. And this one's got 212 million live bugs in it. And they're just trying to sell you more bugs. And here's my question. What's the long-term ramification of introducing those bugs into that soil? How many of them are naturally occurring and how many of them are man-made? How many times have we seen, particularly our government, I'll go after them, introduce something that they thought was a great idea and we live to regret it? You guys really haven't lived. You don't have what's called multifloral rows here. Van Buren County, Iowa, I had a very progressive neighbor back in the 60s, and the extension office said, we're going to put out this multifloral rose. It's like a rose bush. And they predicted, that was the key word, Ryan, they predicted it'd get about 8 foot tall and real thick. And it was going to be a natural fence. You'd never have to build fence again. What they didn't predict was birds spread the seed, and that stuff is the most invasive, hard to kill, miserable thing on the face of the earth. I can take you to the farm where he started that, which unfortunately borders our farm, and I can show you multifloral rows that's 100 feet in the air up an oak tree or a cottonwood tree, and the stem on it's bigger than my wrist. It probably would work for a fence, but it makes the pasture so thick the cows can't walk through it. Just an example. Are we doing the same thing with all of these bugs? I have to wonder. I want to be very specific. I'm not opposed to biologicals. I'm not. I believe in plant growth regulators if they're the right ones and we know what they're supposed to do. However, guys, just saying, oh, I want to put on a plant growth regulator is not necessarily the answer, because 2,4-D is a plant growth regulator. Probably wouldn't want to use that on everything. No different than some of the other things. Cytokinins are naturally occurring. They're an extract product, and we have a cytokinin product if you want to reach for that. But guys, PGRs, plant growth regulators, bugs in a jug, they're not the fix for the foundation. Here's what I'll tell you. Scott Foliar fed that down there, and it worked. But he didn't have the foundation underneath it that he had under this. And when he foliar fed here, he got a much bigger result. Guys, it's fun to build the penthouse on the 14-story hotel. But if somebody doesn't dig a good footing, that penthouse won't be up there very long. When Scott comes in here and he row places exactly what the soil test calls for, he's digging the footings and making a good foundation. And then when he comes in to foliar feed, all of a sudden, he can get the results that he's looking for. So guys, Scott, anything you'd like to add here as we're taking a look at this full system?
I don't have the cost completely, but I reduced my nitrogen. Yes, I've got additional costs in micronutrients and things, but I'm still below where I was in my ultimate break-evens. And, like this field average ought to be, and as far as, so this field was MZB'd, or it's got zones in it.
Yep.
This is one of the lower producing zones
historically
in the field. If we go further south and over east and north, it's a lot better zone, yielding zone. Now this year's a little different because the drier ground almost looks better. That could be part of it this year too, because this looked good all season long. So,
it's interesting. I really encourage you that podcasts are a great way to get some information. If you type a better way to farm in, you can get one. We did one with an individual from the University of Illinois who was an economist, and I like a lot of their guys, for whatever reason, still have their hands in ag. It's one thing for me to be an economist and sit at a desk and tell you how you ought to do it, but it's another thing to be an economist and sit at the desk from 8 to 5 and then farm 2,000 acres afterwards. This guy still farms. He farms up in Greene County, Iowa. And he talked about the fact that right now, the average cost of production across the United States is $4.52 per bushel. Does anyone see a problem here? Unless you forward sold a year ago, we've all got a problem. And we need to figure out, and see, that's where we get sideways, Kevin, is we get guys talking about, well, we can do this for less per acre or less per pound or less per whatever. The only thing that's less that matters is less per bushel. I can come out here, you know people out in the western part of the state, they used to have a real low cost per acre, right? Because they didn't do anything. They just planted and they were getting 60 bushel corn, maybe, if they're lucky. Guys, there's that sweet spot. What we've got to figure out is where on that yield curve do we start getting the lowest cost per bushel? And I would submit to you, it's done through science, not accident. It's done through soil testing and following those soil tests to the T, because here's what I know. All of us have got different farm ground. Heck, a lot of us, the farms that we have are different. They're not the same. And what we got to figure out is how to play that hand that God dealt us and how to get the most out of it. And so if we're going to lower that cost per bushel, we got to meet the needs of the plant to the best of our ability. It doesn't do any good to grow 500 bushel corn if I got $5 a bushel in it, nor does it work to grow 100 bushel corn if I've got $6 a bushel in that. And sometimes we do. Yield is still king. How do we get there cost effectively? That's the deal. I want to go up here to the root pit